Okay, so for today, we have the digital transformation of the modern college campus. Okay. I think digital transformation is a popular term for many industries today.
Yes, maybe a little bit overused, but we'll go with it.
It's a buzzword.
We have to use it. It's like cloud and everything else.
I don't know who decides these things.
Yeah.
What's going to be the word to use? Because it wasn't a year ago.
Once it gets going, everybody latches on.
I don't think
That's
I heard
how that works.
We weren't talking, at least not that much, about digital transformation 2 years ago.
Now their
not
entire
like
company is branded around digital transformation.
There
so
are.
it's
but
it's all good. It's all good. We'll jump in the bandwagon and present some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It fits. So here's the brief agenda for today. We're going to give a little bit about who we are. We're going to go into some trends and challenges, what we can learn from other industries, how to improve the student experience, and then finally, how we can specifically help colleges and universities as they navigate the digital transformation. All right, so briefly introducing our expert panel we have. All right,
expert panel of two.
Yes,
are two people a panel? Is that considered a panel?
I define it as two.
We will define it as a panel. Sounds good.
So we got Sky with us. Sky has been specializing in higher education for quite some time now. And she's been helping schools all over the country with their digital transformation. Sky, how you doing?
Hi, how's it going? Happy to be here.
Yeah. And right next to her, we have the CEO and founder of Secure Edge. How you doing as well?
I'm doing well. Doing very well.
So Philip has over 15 years of digital transformation experience, along with a lot of other skill sets as well.
I started digital transformation in high school, and here we are now.
Does the Walkman count? I'm kidding. It was the time.
Start with the old jokes right off the bat.
It was Nick was talking about it. There was one that came out before the iPod. I can't remember what it was. There's several companies.
So I
coming out
had
with
a
stuff.
Sony Walkman. It was yellow. Did you guys have one of these?
I had
one.
You
I
didn't.
black.
You were two.
I did have one.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Mine was like version. It was not the first version.
Yeah.
It was not version 1. So in any case,
That was digital transformation as well.
it was.
The Walkman.
I thought so, yes, in an analog but to digital way. I mean, look, I could go down a rabbit hole on that. So, Phil, why don't you walk us through just real quickly?
Yep.
Our evolution to where we are today as a company.
Sure. So we started in 2006 doing large-scale Wi-Fi and security. Actually, the primary market we worked with when we first got started were colleges because they were really the first ones to go all in on BYOD. If you think about that, BYOD became a term like 5 or 6 years after that, but colleges really paved the way on that. And then we evolved though over the years. What happened is as we started putting in these large-scale systems, building access control and all that, a lot of schools would come to us and say, hey, can you help us after the fact? And what we realized is that we really needed to evolve the business into being more of a service provider. And so that's the second thing we kind of have on the slide. And then but today we started building software about 5 years ago to make it more like a subscription service, just like you would buy with Office 365 or anything else. And so for the last 5 years, we've been building a whole software platform around Wi-Fi as a service, making Wi-Fi smart and those types of things. So today we're this really weird hybrid when I explain to people kind of what we do today. But the goal is that we wanted to be simple for the customers. So we felt like we had to build the whole solution, which is why it required all those skill sets.
Right on. And obviously it's pretty unique. There's not a whole lot that are doing all those types of things.
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of companies in this space that are what you call value-added resellers, if you will, and a lot of the companies resell product. And really what we want to be able to do is provide a service like AWS provides a cloud service. We want to provide Wi-Fi on subscription,
right,
which requires a lot of advanced functionality.
And you said we started out with higher education because they were sort of early adopters.
Yeah, so back when we started, back in the old days,
we have sort of a small list here.
Yes.
Of
Well,
some of them.
we were really working with hospitals and schools because they were the only ones that really had large scale Wi-Fi. Back then, everybody was scared of wireless, and it was actually slow. So back then, not a lot of people were deploying at a large scale. Mostly it was just hotspot access. But
Right.
I feel really old talking right now. But
No.
she's been doing it for a long time.
Well, it kind of leads into where we are today, though. So
Sure.
you had things back then that were challenging. A lot of people just didn't know a whole lot.
Yeah.
Now we have
Everybody's doing it.
15 plus years of
Yeah.
learning a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously technology advancing
Yeah.
as we started to get into it. So now we're jumping into some of the trends and challenges. One of the more interesting ones is around, and it comes from it seems scary, but it comes from this idea of
Death?
no, but
Bankruptcy?
I think a good one. Yes, bankruptcy is a good one. Doom and gloom, if
Way
you
to
will.
start off with some doom and gloom. Yes.
Well, I mean, let's just get it out of the way. Where let's rip the Band-Aid off here, because it is a real thing. You just mentioned to me that the school you knew of that just happened to close, it's awful.
Yeah.
But this comes mostly from some reports, some studies from several folks out there in the space saying
There
hey,
are some people that are forecasting worst case scenario that half schools are going to close. I think that's a little bit
it's good. It makes good.
crazy, but
makes good news, right?
Or not crazy, but just it is like the worst case scenario, right? No doubt, it's just like retail and other industries that are going through a digital transformation, and the schools that aren't able to make that transition, I think, are going to be in trouble.
In risk, at least.
Exactly, at risk at least. And what is crazy is when you read about a school that's been around since the 1800s close their doors. I mean, it is pretty crazy. But I don't necessarily believe that half schools are going to close. But there certainly is going to be a transition,
And probably some consolidation, at least of some.
Yeah, that's happening. We're seeing that a lot, actually.
I mean, across a lot of industries too.
Yep, absolutely.
I think when people think of higher education, they don't remember that it's a business,
Right.
Mhm.
right?
Well, you don't want to think, you want it to be this noble institution of, higher learning, but it still has to.
There still is money coming in and going out, right?
They still have to operate.
There still has to be a sustainable model.
They have
Yeah.
to pay for things,
Right.
whether they're tools to, for learning or not. There's still cost with everything that happens.
Right.
And it's not government funded. So there you go.
Well, some are government funded, but
Of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
So, and a lot of the reason here is there's lack of scalability. There's a natural pressure to, again, increase cost to be able to provide some of the new things that are going on.
Sure.
However, it's not everything that's causing these issues. So it kind of correlates then. Well, why are these schools going to close? Potentially, obviously, there's costs, but there's also higher expectations and higher demand, which leads to the end user experience.
Right.
Right. So we always talk about it being the metric that we need to start to really measure by. We should at least expand to include end user experience, especially from an IT sort of networking Wi-Fi sort of perspective. So when it comes to end user experience, why do we say that it has to be the metric?
Well, here's the deal. I wasn't in school, but so many years ago. And
Let's talk to the one who just got
and,
out. I'm just kidding around.
No.
and we pay a lot of money to go to school.
Yeah.
We pay a lot of money every year to go. So if I'm going to be spending my money
Yeah.
to go to school,
We're
my
go- we're going into debt, right?
Wi-Fi better be working.
Right.
So I think today a lot of students want that at-home experience brought into the campus. And so that allows them to live and play, if you will. From an academic perspective, you want to be able to access your online tools and, study and do all of those things. And then you also want to do the social side of things. So Instagram, Facebook, gaming.
Streaming, all that stuff.
So all those things have to work. And they have to work
Right.
really well.
And this is something we always say, or we've been saying a lot, is if the Wi-Fi is better at their house or at their home than it is at the school that they're attending, why not just stay home and take online courses?
Right.
What do you like? What? I feel like that's something that schools should think about.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why you have to put a lot of emphasis on the student experience on campus. And that does go outside of Wi-Fi and networking. It's what is the environment like? Our students around people that look like them in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of things to consider outside of technology. It's more of a holistic view, in my opinion. of the campus experience.
I don't remember what we have in the slides, and so I hope I'm not jumping ahead. But the digital transformation is in the college environment is a blend between online learning and campus learning, right? So, what Sky to piggyback on what Sky is saying, you've got to have a different and better experience or different experience when you're going into the school. And the kind of the minimum level is connectivity and those types of things, but you have to think about community and other types of things that they can't get online. That's why people go into school. So,
right.
If school, most of the colleges that we're talking to end up having an online program and an on-campus program, and the on-campus program has to offer different things that are different and or better than the online experience.
Do schools?
Because it's more expensive.
We always talk about the end user experience from the student's perspective. Does the school also think about like faculty and staff and what they need to be able to teach these things?
Yeah.
Because we talk about students, and because obviously the students are, for the most part, it's their money that's paying for everything. But the teachers and faculty and administrators, they need things as well to be able to operate the school.
Right.
So it kind of goes, but they can't necessarily. Well, I mean, depends. Remote work is becoming more and more, but they need tools as well. So it's across the board.
Yeah. So my wife teaches in college,
right?
And she requires the same type of connectivity because all their lesson plans and things are online. So that if Canvas is down, she can't do her lesson plan, she can't get tests, she can't do whatever. So it certainly is and she's employable other places. So if the system was so poor, at the school, she could literally just pick up and go to a location. So I think the digital experience does have to be built around the educators as well as the end user.
Absolutely.
And it probably stems from other technologies like smartphones and things like that. But would you agree that it's an application-driven world?
Of course.
At this point.
Yeah, of course.
So, again, this shifts into more of IT was doing things one way, and of course, all this disruption happened from various different technologies, whether it's smartphones and BYOD, and then you have all the applications that then followed, which really makes those things powerful. So now they're having to change. And it's kind of, everybody does it at their own pace, but would you say this is an inevitability of this type of the role of IT shifting from managing the hardware and the network stuff to now managing the experience? Is that going to become sort of across the board what everybody's going to have to shift to?
I think IT professionals have a lot that they're responsible for, and it's becoming more and more. So you're not just looking at Wi-Fi and networking, you're looking at servers and storage and applications and all of those things. So they're doing that. A CIO's role and a director of IT's role is becoming more business-centric, which means they have to look at other things from a business perspective, and they're not able to spend as much time putting emphasis or maintaining or managing the systems that they should be responsible for. So that's why it's important for these individuals to pull in the right resources to help them maintain these systems over time.
Yeah, I think the natural trend is, when we started working with schools 15 years ago, they were all hosting their own email servers. Nobody does that anymore. It's Gmail, it's Office 365, it's whatever. And they do that because getting somebody to manage the Outlook server is hard, right? Mm-hmm. To find somebody. And it doesn't make sense for them to do that anymore, right? Really what they need is they need a good system that works. And I think the same thing is happening where, like this guy said, the CIO should be spending more time thinking about what do we want our student experience to be like? And then everything else they should think about what are the things that we want to do and have time to do. And more we'll go into a school and they'll have a CIO and 2 to 3 people on their IT staff.
That's right. That's right.
And their requirements of those 3 people is, you got to do. We have residence halls with the Wild West going on, because who knows what's happening out there with gaming systems and all this kind of stuff. And then we have an online system where Canvas and Moodle and Blackboard must work. If they don't work, we can't operate the class. So it's just like, what do you spend time doing, right? You just don't have time to do all those things. And that's just the IT. Usually IT actually gets involved with audio, video, and the classroom technology experience and all that as well. And so it compounds. It's just, you have to decide what are the things that we can do, and what are the things that we can just get somebody to handle for us. And
That's right.
I think more and more you want to push a button and get Dropbox as storage, right?
Mhm.
And now I want to push a button and just get my infrastructure to work, and I want to push a button and get my cloud. So
Right.
I think that's where things are headed.
I was speaking to somebody recently that said there are just too many changes. Technology is just changing so fast. It's hard to keep up with that and also keep up with the business side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was one of his big pain points is it makes more sense for me to offload this to someone else and have them manage it and keep it updated for me so I can focus on other things.
Probably allows them to be more proactive too, as opposed to reactionary to everything, where they feel like they're probably in the weeds all the time, trying to trying to prioritize what they have to do constantly. And it's probably a huge battle every day of what they should do first.
Right.
Another big issue we see, or not issue necessarily, but a challenge, is they want to do all these things, but money always gets in the way. So like at a school, IT is just one bucket of many buckets, and networking or Wi-Fi is just another bucket within a sub bucket of, it just gets really like the money's got to go 1,000 places, and who gets what,
So traditionally what schools have been doing is they've been budgeting in a capital format. So they usually budget for something when they build a building, which is good. Hey, I'm building a building. I need to put in wiring. I need to put whatever. Let me lump in all my technology in with that. The challenge with that is a lot of times they're depreciating the building over a long period of time, and the technology doesn't last that long. So what we think about is how to get schools in the thinking about how do I deliver a service level agreement to my students and how much does that cost? And right now, a lot of schools every school, they pay for bandwidth to come into your campus. You pay a certain amount for a fiber connection from MCNC or whoever it is you're buying your bandwidth from. Why not extend, and you pay for it monthly, like why not extend that inside the walls and just have your infrastructure delivered on subscription the same way, right? Like to me, that's logical. Same way I buy Office 365 licenses today, and I just pay for it monthly, but I know Microsoft's maintaining it and it's going to be good and it's not my problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're going to fix it, right? That's why I think we have to get the CFOs and the business managers of schools in the mindset of delivering on experience and then budgeting for it and getting a service level agreement, and things always work. I mean, I think that's a hard road sometimes when you have a lot of traditional way of thinking, but I think that's the right way to do it.
And you recently spoke to one of your customers about it, and what was their budget was? Like, they got nothing.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, and there's also, I don't want to say a knowledge gap, but there's at least a communication gap between departments because CFOs don't know all that it takes to maintain the systems that are on campus, and they don't realize the expense behind it. And why,
they're limited on funding as well.
Well, right. And also why it's important to refresh certain things at one time versus spreading it across a number of years, for example. So there's just a lot of things to consider that maybe you don't have the ability to because funding just isn't there. And because you are used to that CapEx way of spending, so that's the mentality that you have, you're thinking that way. So there's a couple of different challenges.
Would you say that most schools piece things out? Like, so this part of campus gets their upgrade, and then
if you think about it, if you're budgeting for your technology when you're building a building, that's when stuff gets upgraded. Mm-hmm. So my brand new football residence hall, has great infrastructure and the Wi-Fi is fast. And then I go to my nurse's facility, it was built 3 years ago, and it's
nothing but problems.
It's terrible, right? Mm-hmm. Because I've got different service level agreements across campus, and that's not. I just think it's an older way of thinking. If you will.
And with a team of 3 or 5 people,
all you're doing is putting out fires.
Who are not just doing Wi-Fi, by the way.
Yeah.
Now you're all over the place.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's rough.
So really, you want to go into a campus. You want to get the same level of service for everyone, and then you want to get it on a consistent refresh cycle because every 4 to 5 years
it's a lot easier to manage.
You got to upgrade it. Yep. So it's just, to me, it makes more sense to pay for it monthly and just make sure it's always good.
Right.
Right. And this is kind of going back to your blended.
It's my unbiased opinion.
This kind of goes back to what you're talking about in terms of blended learning.
Sure.
The environment's changing to be. You might have some in-class time, but there's always work outside of class that you need to be able to access some sort of cloud application to get the notes, get the homework, get the assignment, turn that in, or interaction in some sort of way. we talk about productivity a lot as well in terms of providing an experience that is not only enjoyable but efficient for the student, right? Which goes into some of more navigational things, which this is like, if you had everything else sort of taken care of, you could start to get into that conversation of, well, what should we provide for our students, right?
So I think there's a lot of opportunities if you look at how things happen with other services that are out there, like Uber, obviously, Postmates, and some of the others. Uber and those systems, they work off of GPS systems, and then they can do all sorts of cool things based on where people are, right? So if you think about a campus infrastructure, if you have a latest, newer version, actually has a lot of that functionality built in it if you unlock it. And so some things you can do if you have the right applications running on the phone is you can tap into it and do some really cool stuff. And so I think if you're focusing on the end user experience, the minimum level is you get really good infrastructure in for everyone. But then you start thinking about what kind of cool stuff can we do with the infrastructure that we put in.
Right.
And there's a lot of obvious great opportunities.
Which leads us into the next part, which is, okay, other industries are already sort of doing this.
Yes.
And not sort of, they are.
Yeah.
They're able to start taking advantage of some of the built-in features that some of the new technology has through software and create those experiences. And so this is always a good chart in terms of how that sort of flows. The best, obviously, experience goes up the chart. But just to piggyback off that, as a couple examples, we're seeing in co-working where they're tracking the utilization of the workspace to, adjust staffing needs.
Yes.
Or to, make your costs more efficient.
This is where you learn from retail, right? Retail has a whole industry around just knowing when people are inside the store. And if you took a college campus and you thought about, based on all my facilities, where are people by time of day? That's some really interesting data where you can plan staff around, you can plan services around, but then you can also turn around and give that to the student. Like, do I want to walk across campus and go to the cafeteria if I don't have any seats available? If I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
it's really busy.
Yeah, exactly. So those are types of things where if you just use the infrastructure as your intelligence layer and pull that into something where you can see what's going on, there's some really cool stuff you can do.
Right. So again, more examples of airports using wayfinding and GPS capability. It's those self-service type of capabilities as well, like you're saying. So it's the business tracking usage and what people are, where they are, what they're doing to better serve them, but also them giving them the ability to service themselves as well, which is, again, drives back to that experience. They don't need to rely on, how many people are at a college campus just standing there waiting to give directions. Eventually everybody will just have it on their phone. They'll know where they need to go. And a nice little stat here in terms of every dollar that we invest in the user experience brings $100 in return, which is a really, really large ROI. And I don't think that that's going to be going away. People want that experience. The one button experience, we have certain companies out there to thank for that. Netflix, Uber, things like this that are just change the fabric of how we do things, and other industries are coming along as it makes sense. So how do we start to do this? How do we start to build on what we've been talking about to actually improve the student experience? So we touched upon it first. Infrastructure is sort of the foundational layer on which we got to build everything on top of it. Without solid infrastructure, we cannot do these cool things. I mean, we were talking before we started about how, we've seen campuses that have 10-year-old infrastructure. And it's like, how did they get there? Well, because the money was going elsewhere, and they were trying to invest in some of these applications, not realizing that nothing's going to work if you don't take care of that basic need first, right?
So that's kind of the foundation. If you don't have that, you can't build anything else on top of it. And certainly if it's legacy, 7-10 years old, then you're going to be in trouble, right? So one thing that's so funny is because we've been doing this for long and I'm so old, is we've seen a lot of the life cycles of these systems over and over again, and and it's interesting. When we first started putting in systems was actually 2006 and 7, actually 2005 before we actually formed the company. And what we found is that the optimal life cycle of an infrastructure on a college campus is between 4 and 5 years. If you go anything past that, you've got the help desk getting blown up. You've got parents reporting to the dean and saying, "Hey, I'm spending $40,000 for Sky to go there,
and I can't send an email,
and I can't reach them because your network sucks so bad," right? So you've got a lot of those types of things. So we've kind of tracked that over time to know kind of what the optimal cycle is.
Obviously, we're taking care of the foundation, the infrastructure. The one thing we always say is, the infrastructure drives the application, which drives the business goal. And I tend to look at it the other way around for a school to think about. If there's a business process or some sort of major goal you're trying to achieve, you're probably going to invest in some sort of application to help you do that, which is going to dictate or require what you need from your infrastructure to be able to, be successful doing that. So then we also talked, though, a lot about software and applications. So the next layer. So the infrastructure has to be taken care of to provide campus-wide connectivity. And then on top of that, though, what should we start to think about to drive a better experience? One of those potential things is a unified campus application, streamlines communication, allows to give us a central hub to be able to connect to the infrastructure, to be able to start provide some of these cool things.
Are you seeing any particular app? Are you seeing a standard or no?
I haven't seen a standard.
Okay, good. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I've seen so far,
it's fairly new in my opinion. I think for a lot of schools, they're still.
To me, that's just a given. Like that would be the first thing you would have. We've seen some schools that have built their own,
which is cool.
Yeah, which is cool, but
it's cumbersome though.
There are a few brands out there. I just can't remember the name of one company, but we have seen 2 or 3 companies out there that are building campus style apps. The great thing about having kind of a standardized system is you can plug in directly to the API and feed some really cool data through from the infrastructure.
I think Moto Labs is one.
Yeah, that's the one. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, as you know, if they're building their own app or software development, it's hard.
I do know that.
Right. So it takes time. It's hard to do. And this is why investing in somebody to partner with would be good.
Yeah.
Again, you start to get into.
You should bring him on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you start to find, what are the things we could do? Well, we could start to do things like wayfinding and using GPS and showing wait times and some of those capabilities. It just depends on what's on your priority and what you have to take care of first, I suppose. And then one of the cool things I think people could start to take care of first, though, would be business intelligence and using the infrastructure they already have to pull data on those things to drive better business decisions. So I know that's one thing we're working on is business intelligence. How big of a role do you think it's going to play for higher education?
Well, I think that it's going to be very helpful. We talked about before helping students be more productive and seeing whether they're in the library studying in class or messing around. Right. And being able to track students to some degree, right? I think is important just to help them be more productive and get the best out of their education they're paying for.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things you can do. I think the decisions you have to make right now, and the decision we're making is what should we do, right? And I think there's helpful ways to do it in a way where it's not necessarily spying on the student, right?
Well, I think people get weirded out by that. But that's not
there
really
are some platforms out there that I've seen, because if you start pulling network data, there's a lot of stuff that you can pull, but you shouldn't, right? There's certainly an ethical line, and I've got stories about that about me. Anyway, so getting on some people for doing stuff they shouldn't do. Anyway, not on our team, another company that I saw a demo of. But anyway, but there are some really useful things to do. Like, and we've actually had some CIOs of colleges say, hey, can you just tell us by time of day when people are in buildings? Tell us about the student center and the mix of people and what time. Not the identity necessarily of the end user, right? But just tell us like what's going on in the facility at a given time. So if you imagine searching Google on a business, they start telling you the busy times of that business, that little chart. Just things like that, but doing it on a college campus. That's really interesting data, right? Yeah. So it's good historical information, so I know how to plan, but it's also good real time for the students to know, hey, I should go to the library right now. or I can go to the library right now and still have a seat. Those types of things I think are really interesting.
And you also get the help of understanding how to reuse space.
Right. Oh, exactly.
So
Yeah.
if I'm a college campus and part of my building isn't being used,
Right.
Hello.
Right.
Let me figure out a way to get students into that space. So that information is important as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually really
Optimization.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing that goes along with the student experience would be onboarding.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Well, because everybody's bringing more and more devices and this, that, and the other, but how do you do that easily? How do you make the experience? How do you do it easily for the IT team, but then make it a great experience for the end user too?
It's really hard. Is a short answer. It's really hard because you're balancing security. So the two things you're balancing on the scale are: do I make it really easy? Like an open network is really easy, but it's not secure. Or do I make it super secure and lock everything down? If I make it super secure, I have to load something on every device, and I'm not going to do that. So you have to go somewhere in the middle of allowing people to register it. And so where we believe is you've got to balance that, but then also allow a lot of self-service. Like let students onboard themselves. Like trying to have the IT team do that is a complete disaster. Like we've got to build tools where the students can onboard themselves, and they prefer to onboard themselves.
Yeah, and they have tons of devices too. I think one campus has an average of about 8 devices per student.
I can't remember. I can't remember
That's a lot.
which college it was, but we counted 12. We counted 12 devices for one student. It was like,
which is
what in the world?
I mean, I was gonna say I was trying to add it up. Like, what do I have?
Yeah,
definitely not 12, which is probably on the high side, but you got to
probably do honestly when you tie in. I mean, because your lights now are.
I guess it's true.
We're seeing literally lighting systems on college campus networks. How many devices do you have that are Alexa enabled now?
That's right.
I mean, it's going to be the norm.
So
it is the norm.
I'm going to say, so you definitely have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Now, another aspect of providing a great experience is being able, and it's not necessarily track, but we got to measure the experience. So I think for a while, schools have been measuring sort of the network side of things, at least to some degree. And the user experience has been this big sort of mystery because you're looking at one perspective of what you're providing. So that's why we're talking about things like performance monitoring and measuring the end user experience. This is a slide we use a lot in terms of what's happening right now at any given point, any given area on my campus, right? And you should be able to tell quite easily who's having a good experience and who's not, right? So it's not necessarily about measuring speed alone or network performance. It's measuring how are my business critical apps performing? How are people interacting with the network? What's that like? And how do you see that? I know we've gotten a lot of questions about it from customers interested in it. What are you seeing from their questions and sort of investing in performance monitoring, management, that type of stuff?
So I've seen a lot of tools out there that do look at the infrastructure. So they can tell you whether an EP is up or down, switching, there's an issue, whatever the case may be. But I've not seen anything out there that allows you to actually monitor end user experience through critical business applications. So I would say that that's been a huge change, is that we're now starting to look from that perspective. Because what I've seen out in the field is you go to troubleshoot an issue and your application provider is telling you that it's not the application. But then you look at your network, and your network, there's no issues as far as you can tell, and you don't have anything that's reporting on that. And so to be able to put these types of tools in and actually monitor that performance of that application, and to be able to figure out, hey, there's actually an issue with the application, and here's the data right in front of you that I can show you. Well, now we're being more proactive about resolving issues. And now that problem that usually takes 2 or 3 weeks to solve is taking a couple of days or even a couple of hours.
I think a lot of the older systems are designed really just to look at infrastructure. And they were designed, and so the process is, hey, I can get an alert if my infrastructure goes down, but that's kind of too late, right? Or the way most campuses work actually is wait for an end user to call and tell you they have a problem, right? And so, if you call in, obviously I know there's a problem, but now I know I have a customer service challenge I have to handle. So the idea is that is that we should know in real time exactly how things are performing on campus. It requires a little different thinking about how we design the infrastructure and build things to monitor it, but we should know in real time. We should have a campus map. I mean, if Wi-Fi is like power, infrastructure is like power, which it is. If we've already said that if my infrastructure goes down, I can't teach class, I can't do whatever.
That's right.
Then we need to know like what's happening right now. And so I think we have to go from the old way of thinking to real time monitoring. Like right now, let me see a map, what's happening, right? And the end users are experiencing the network in the way it's supposed to operate.
Well, and so, how would a school measure SLAs before?
Downtime, APs, infrastructure down, that kind of thing.
But if that's too late, typically,
I'm not sure a lot of schools. I know schools do measure SLAs, but a lot of them are around when somebody calls a help desk, how fast do they respond?
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of schools that are really good at doing that, and so that's out there. But the what happens when there's a problem is what is the hard part, right? Because if there's a problem, like Sky said, I've got to dissect all my infrastructure. Is it my ISP that's going down? Am I having issues there? Is it my network infrastructure? If it is, where? Is it my firewall that's having a problem, or is it actually my application? Like what's actually happening, right? So I think the new age tools have got to be able to see what's happening quickly and then alert the user or alert the manager what's happening.
Right. And to your point, quickly is a huge thing.
Yeah.
I've also seen out in the field that students might not get their complaint in for 2 weeks.
Oh, and yeah, because they don't. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like they're conditioned. They're conditioned to do that because it takes X amount of time to even figure out an issue once I tell you there's an issue, and maybe I don't even get an answer. So now you have to look at, well, how can I figure this out hopefully before you even know there's an issue, right? And how can I fix it very quickly so that we can now train our students that if you come to me, I can figure it out and we can get it done really fast.
Are schools tracking historical data?
Well, so what happens, they're not calling the help desk, and then when they have a survey come out, that's when
right.
They say it's terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they just complain on social.
Both.
Yeah.
Right. And then somebody sees it and they go, hey, do you know that?
Yeah.
Did you see this? Yeah. And it's bad. Okay. So wrapping this all up, how are we positioned to help schools, colleges, and universities sort of navigate the digital transformation, start to address some of these issues and trends and challenges and be successful? At a high level, we fix Wi-Fi problems, right? We make Wi-Fi smarter, and we make it easier. That's at a super high level. So, and we like this slide because it kind of cuts to the core of what we can do at a high level. So, in terms of fixing Wi-Fi, making it smarter, making it easier, kind of go through just some of the high level items that we're able to help schools address.
Sure.
Right.
Well, from a fixing the problem standpoint, there's a lot of things that we look at, right? So not every school that we go to needs a Wi-Fi refresh, for example. So we like to go in, and if you're having a performance issue, then we're doing a performance assessment, for example. If you need help, your engineering staff is slammed and you need some more hands on deck, we can go in and help with configurations, for example. So there's a lot of services that we offer that are one-time services that some of our clients need because the infrastructure is there and just need more hands on deck.
Right.
And then from a full-on service perspective, of course, with the Wi-Fi as a service model that we offer, we have that option as well as managed services option. So our goal here is to really provide a service to our clients and provide a solution that they can work with long-term that will keep them up to date every year. So year over year, it's something you don't even have to worry about.
Right.
So we want to be able to plug in wherever there's a hole, right? So sometimes it's fixing just what they have in place. You know, hopefully that is the scenario because you've already invested a lot of money. Hopefully we can just come in, you know, patch it up a little bit. Maybe that'll last for 2 or 3 years. So you don't have to make another, you know, any more investment. But the other part of it is we've built a lot of tools around performance monitoring, around onboarding and things like that we feel like we can add to most existing. Actually, the performance monitoring we can add to any infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And then some of the infrastructure, depending on what you have, we can actually pull data from the network and compare it to the user experience as well. And that's where the information gets really valuable. So there is opportunities there for us just to kind of bolt on to whatever they have. And then whenever the time is right, whenever a refresh is needed, then we can come in and do something more wholesale and then hopefully get the campus on a consistent refresh cycle so that they're always meeting a good SLA for the students.
Right. And so we talk about that subscription model or Wi-Fi as a service model, which, it sort of allows people to, and allows schools to really maximize whatever they have. And to your point, not everybody needs that right away. And you could sort of work up to that to make that decision, and put those pieces together. Especially as it gets more and more complex, and time seems to shrink and decrease on what you have to do. So finding a partner that can help in any capacity, and sort of be that partner that enhances your capability when you need it, wherever that may be.
Right.
So, and we talk about that through doing that through services, obviously being smarter through software, and then being able to help in terms of not only from a financial spot or financial type of perspective, but from a performance perspective as well. And that really sums it up for today. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Danny.
This was a really great. I know this was a really great conversation.
Yeah.
I thought it went really well, and we can't wait to see everybody again. So
That sounds
thanks.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.